What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, All the Dialogue. I got a special guest on the line. So if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the people.
I'm Mike Mosley, producer from out of the Bay Area.
Let them know some of the artists you produce for.
Produced E40, Richie Rich, TQ was one of my artists signed at LA, and Tupac, of course, Mac Mall, and Sibo, Spice One, Messy Marv, San Quinn, Sally Sale, Be Legit. You know, mainly a lot of all of the 90s rappers out of the early 90s from the Bay Area.
So with that being said, my man, I'm going to get right into it. How did you meet Tupac?
Well, I met Tupac at Jack the Rapper in Atlanta. I met him at the Marriott Marquise. I was coming up the elevator and he was coming towards, I was going up the escalator. He was coming towards the escalator. And a friend of mine who was a sky cap, he had worked at the airport in San Francisco. So he would see a lot of celebrities come in and out the airport. So he kind of had a slight, relationship or visual relationship with Pac. And so he would talk to Pac about me. And when he seen Tupac at the convention, he kind of ushered Pac over towards where I was going towards. And then that's how we basically met up at the same time and trying to, at an escalator,
Right. How did that conversation go when you first met him?
Well, when I met him, he was just as excited to meet me as I was to meet him, because he had heard a lot of my work. He had heard a lot of my early stuff, my Sibo, and one of his favorite songs was Bailing Through My Hood that me and Sam Bostic had produced for Sally Sale. So was familiar with my work. His ear was really to the street, so he knew of a lot of work that I produced. And so he had said that I told him I wanted to work with him because at the time I wanted to get a plaque. And I knew that he was fresh off that Janet Jackson film, that film he did with Janet Jackson, Poetic Justice. So I knew he was a huge star at the time. He's from the Bay, and so I'm like, man, I want to work with you. He was like, man, I want to work with you. What's up? He was like, well, I got one more couple songs I'm still working on. I'm gonna be in the Bay next week. So here my number is. Let's meet up. When I come to the Bay, bring me some music. That's when the cassettes were still out. And so he came to the Bay, and I gave him a cassette of the song Heavy in the Game that me and Sam had cooked up a few days before he got there. And so I gave him a cassette tape, went down there and met with him in the Bay. And because like San Leandro, somewhere out there by the airport in Oakland. And gave him a cassette tape. He flew back to L.A., and he hit me 2-3 days later and scheduled an appointment for me to get picked up by a car and flew me to L.A. to produce some more, to produce some more songs.
How did that recording session go for Heavy in the Game?
So Heavy in the Game, we had actually produced the track before they actually did the lyrics on it. So what happened was we produced the track, and then I flew to L.A. with my equipment, and we tracked it out. And Richie Rich came through there. That was my first time meeting Richie Rich. So I know Richie Rich from Tupac. Tupac introduced me to Richie Rich, even though Richie Rich had been there. And he had been a factor in the Bay with the 415 music back early in the 90s. And so, that session was real, quick and easy. You know what I mean? It was like my first professional scenario where I got flown to LA, and I'm in a real LA studio, different from what we're used to up in the Bay Area. Everybody waiting on you hand and foot. It just was a whole different environment, a whole different league of doing business, in a professional way. And so, the song was, I pretty much was, at the mixing board, and it went by fairly smooth,
Right. So I want to go back a little. You said the first time you met Tupac was at Jack the Rapper. If I'm not mistaken, that's the same day you met Left Eye, right?
Yes, same day I met Left Eye. Yeah, and I think Jack the Rapper really was something like a Freaknik or something. I don't know if it was the week before or the week of, or Jack the Rapper and the Freaknik was the same type of thing. So everybody in the music industry, let alone Atlanta, was there. That's the first time I actually seen Snoop That's the first time Death Row was there, and Snoop him was fighting with Luke at the time. I don't know what that was about. It was some type of beef between Luke and Death Row. And so it was a big old thing with them at that convention. But it was a real dope. That's the first time I met Busta Rhymes. And I was actually down there with E40 and them.
Go into detail about that? Death Row and Uncle Luke had a fight at Jack the Rapper?
Yeah, it was Jack the Rapper, but I don't really know what the beef really was. But there was like this there was this issue. I don't know what it was, but they were like fighting. Somebody was fighting. There was something going on back then with them, and I can't really remember what it was, but there was some type of issue where Death Row had a problem with Luke at the time. And I don't know if it was, some of the people from that camp got into a fight with the Death Row camp. But Death Row was there so deep that they used to walk Snoop around with about 5 or 6 bodyguards around him. Back then they were doing that. You know what I mean? At the conventions. Snoop was like a president walking around out there. But it was the issue back then. It was like something weird. That was the uproar at the convention at the time.
How was that interaction like when you first met Left Eye?
Well, when when you at these conventions, you just meet everybody. So one of my homeboys, Chauncey Banks, he was already talking to her, standing there talking to her, and he's like, "Hey, Mike, come over here. I got Left Eye." And so I went over there and I introduced myself. She's like, "Yeah, how you doing?" Just a cordial little introduction thing. And we had a camera. We had her send out a little drop, send a little shout out or something to me. She was talking, she was real cool though. She was real nice and sweet and humble. You know what I mean? Real cool, down to earth. Young lady.
You produced "Can You Get Away" for Tupac, right?
Yes. How
did that song come about?
So, what happened with that? He had flew me back to LA once again and had me come to the studio, and I didn't get to the studio until like 2 or 3 in the morning, and when I got to the studio, there was no equipment there for me to work on. I only had a couple of my pieces of equipment, but they didn't have my EPC that I needed. So Tupac had called I want to say Tom Wiley, called Tom Wiley's assistant and was yelling and screaming and cussing people out, telling him, he was real mad and upset. This was like 3 in the morning. He was real upset that I didn't have all my tools that I needed. So I basically had scraps to work with. So I ended up getting me a guitar player in there. Then I called Ebony. I flew Ebony in, so she didn't get there till like 3:34. I flew her in just to have her come sing on the hook. And, I just was sitting there and something just came back like an old memory of just my mother and my family just playing old songs. And I just came up with the whole Frankie Beverly vibe type song. And Pac just went in there and killed it,
What's that song about, Left Eye?
No. Oh, I don't know. You know what? He never said, "Oh, this is about Left Eye." He just was writing and doing stuff. So I don't really know if it was or wasn't. He was more so his vibe at that time. He was just on some respectful black woman, which he already really was anyway. But he was at the time he was facing. This was right before he went to go to court, and he was fighting that case up in New York. So he was feeling kind of somber, and he was feeling kind of in that space. That's why that album felt different from All Eyez On Me album, because he was in a more subdued, kind of chill, not really chill, but just a humbled, just uncertain of the future type of a vibe. And he was just more prolific on that album. So he was just letting that side, his sensitive side go, so to speak. So we was talking about all kinds of just random stuff. I asked him, what was he doing at the Saturday Night Live with Madonna, because I seen a video of him. I saw the TV, I saw the show, and I just saw him. They did a quick flash, and I saw him. He was right there in the audience sitting with Madonna. I'm like, "Man, what you doing with Madonna?" He was like, "What you think I was doing with Madonna?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." He was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah." And then we started talking about the whole him and Janet Jackson, how she didn't want him to kiss her, or she wanted him to take an AIDS test and that whole thing. So he was, upset about that. But at the same time, he still had respect for women. So he just was on his, his pen game as far as trying to, rap for the women, rap to the women, and try and, show them, that he got respect for them. So that was his vibe when he was doing Can You Get Away? You know, I didn't know we was gonna come up with it. I was just so happens that's what brought that out of it when I just came up with that type of track. Happy Feeling basically is what I reflipped that.
Out of curiosity, did Tupac ever talk to you about the whole Ayanna Jackson incident?
Yeah, he did. He just was basically telling me that, of course, he didn't do it. You know, and he was just like, man, I ain't do that. He just did. You know, it was just one of those basic things that, you know, I went and had sex with a girl. She gave me head on the dance floor. I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? He was like, man, she gave me head on. I thought I was on top of the world. You know what I mean? She gave me head on the dance floor, so I figured, you know, we go back to the room. I have sex with it, and I got done. And then my homeboys, you know, and then basically it turned it into a train type thing. You know what I mean? And so I guess she felt some kind of way afterwards, you know. But looking back at it now, it was something deeper happening. You know what I mean? Looking at everything else that came out, but that's just what he told me, which is he didn't mean no harm, but he just felt like she just was acting like that because, you know what I mean, she just thought that they were supposed to be together or something, you know, when he like, man, you give me head on the dance floor, so anything goes at this point, you know. So he didn't like be like, y'all come in, y'all rape. You know, it wasn't no rape type thing. She just was acting like a toss-up, basically, you know. So he just, you know, he handled his business, and, you know, he might have asked her, you know, can my homeboys, whatever, you know what I mean? She was like, yeah, come on. So Stretch and, you know what I mean, all the other cats, the other dudes, chose around, you know, they had sex with her too. So then, but she gonna point him out, you know. So he was just like in disbelief that it was happening to him, you know.
Right. So you produced "Can You Get Away" and "Heavy in the Game" for the Me Against the World album. Me Against the World comes out, is #1 on Billboard Top 100. How was you feeling, my man, when Me Against the World came out and it was having all that success?
I mean, it was like a new feeling, you know, because we had never had anything. I mean, I think it dropped around the same time the E40 stuff was dropping. So, you know, me and my production company and friends that we were, you know, Sam Bosick and me, we were all just kind of like on a cloud, so to speak, with success, not really knowing, you know what I mean, how to handle it. But we just was like really excited to just be professionals finally, you know. And we could see the amount of success that we were going to have as far as accolades. We weren't even thinking about monies at the time. We weren't even doing it for monies. We just were doing it for, you know, to get us to the next step.
If I'm not mistaken, when Me Against the World dropped, Tupac was in prison. So was you in contact with Tupac while he was in prison?
Yes. He would call me. He would have the record label call me, and they would set up appointments for me to come back to L.A. and I produced songs for Thug Life, and he had Jasmine Guy come through, and she sang on a couple songs that I did for Thug Life, and he had the Outlaws, which were, at the time, they were called Dramacidal. He had me producing songs for Dramacidal while he was in jail, so I would talk to him while he was in jail, off and on, because he still was, you know, he kept his company running, you know, because those were his artists. So he, you know, and I was one of his go-to producers. So he had me, you know, down in the studio working on all of them.
What was your conversations like with Tupac while he was in prison?
It was just all business. It was all, you know, I need you to produce a song for such and such. Hey, I'm going to have Jasmine Guy. You know, just a basic. It wasn't like, no, man, I'm going through it. Or, you know, it wasn't nothing like that at all. It was just like, oh, some, you know, let's get this done. We still working. You know what I mean? Just because I'm here don't mean that we're not working no more. So he was just on some, let's get it done. I need you to do this for me. You know, just a favor, you know, me asking me. Not really about a favor, but because they were paying me. You know what I mean? But he just knew that he can count. I was one of his, like I say, I was one of his producers that he wanted to produce, you know, songs, twos and three songs on different little albums that he had.
Did you have any idea Tupac and Jasmine Guy was that close prior to her going to the studio singing hooks for Tupac?
No, I didn't even know. I hadn't even realized that he even knew her at that time. I'm just like, man, Jasmine Guy come through. I didn't even know she could sing. You know what I mean? She came through and she was singing. But I didn't know it went any further. I didn't know what she was doing or what her role was other than coming through the studio and just singing on. So I never explored or Never realized anything. And when he got out, I never even asked him about her. You know, it just was like, because when you around people that are like your homeboys, you don't really think about the stuff you think about years later, what you could have, would have, should have done. You know what I mean? You're just in the motion, in the moment at the time. And so you're just living, you know what I mean? You're just living day by day and just doing what you got to do. You're not really reading too far into certain things like we do after the fact. You know what I mean? Like right now, I read into stuff now with my friends now just because of my relationship with Pac. I don't take none of my real high-powered friends for granted that are major factors in the industry. You know what I mean? Like Floyd Mayweather is a friend of mine. So if I see him, I try and hurry up and take a picture with him. I try and talk to him as much as I possibly can because these are like major people that I know that are my really friends. So I read into stuff more now than I was then. So I don't know. I didn't really get into it. Hey man, what's Jasmine Guy doing? Why is she here? I didn't really, you know what I mean? I didn't go that far into that other than that's just somebody, I thought he was just somebody she messed with. And, you know, cause he was a womanizer, you know, the ladies man. So I just figured that she was just another person that, you know, was just maybe his homegirl, maybe he messed with her or whatever. And she just came through and got on a few songs because he liked to help people. He liked for people to, if they had dreams and aspirations to be something, he wanted to try and help them, you know what I mean, push the line on becoming successful.
Take me through the moment when you found out Suge Knight bailed Tupac out of prison and Tupac was joining Death Row.
I felt like it was a good thing, you know, because I'd asked the label, at one point. I said, man, why y'all leaving Pac in jail? They was like, man, he's too much of a knucklehead. We ain't got time to be, you know, we cool. You know what I mean? We've done too much already, you know, so we not gonna keep doing this. So I'm like, oh man, that's dirty. So when Suge got him, you know, of course it was a good thing, you know. We all felt like it was a good scenario.
You did produce some songs on All Eyez On Me, but before I get into that, how did that come about? Did Tupac reach out to you once he got out of prison for y'all to start doing music again?
So what happened was he had called E40. He called E40 and told him that he wanted us to come down to LA to be in the California Love video shoot. So that's why you see E40, you see C-Bo, you see D-Shaw, you see B Legit, you see me, you see all of us from the Bay Area. We drove down to LA to be in the California Love video shoot when he got out. And so before we did that, we had went to the day before the video shoot. We went to the studio, and that's when we had produced. Me and Rick Rock had produced, some 2 songs on there, Trade War Stories and You Ain't Hard to Find. And then the next day we did video shoot.
How did them songs come about? Trading War Stories and Ain't Hard to Find. How was the studio sessions like for them songs?
Okay, well, we got to the studio, like I was saying on one of my posts on my Instagram. I was talking about how the studio, you know, first we get to Death Row Studio, Can-Am Studio, and the room is huge, you know, real huge room. It was like almost cathedral type huge to me. And the speaker system sounded like a concert in a big room, but it was small in comparison to how loud the music was, because you could feel it like in the back of you could feel it in your chest, and you sit way in the back of the room, but the speakers are kind of, you know what I mean, nice, like a nice ways away, you know, probably maybe about 4 car lengths away from where you're sitting. And the music, you know, Pac was sitting there just playing us all of the songs he had already done prior to. And Johnny J was there as well. And so we all was there, you know. And so first song we did was We Ain't Hard to Find. And so Pac was like, yeah, y'all ready? Y'all ready to work? Y'all ready to work? And so Pac was like, yeah, Johnny J, let Mike Mosley get over there. So I got on the little keyboards and start MPC and start tinkering around, doing some stuff, and came up with, you know, cool little song or whatever. And then everybody did their verses, you know, because he wanted to make sure that any album he did, he wanted to make sure he brought us along with him or was as successful with him on his journey, right? So we did that song, and then Then, I had Rick Rock with me. He was had just started that, and I just had him come down and was working, helping me out at my studio and up in the Bay Area. And Rick, at the time, Rick was only producing on SB 1200. So he hadn't really started. I hadn't really showed him the MPC too much. He had just started getting familiar with the MPC and how I produce as far as the modules and all that kind of stuff. He hadn't been doing it. So I showed him a whole different way of how I produced it. He just picked it up and started, integrating it. So at that session, he had the SB 1200. So he had a bunch of discs, and so he was popping discs in and out. So Pac's the type of dude that as soon as he hear any and everything, he rap it immediately. So he heard Rick had like a dope sample that he put in there in the MPC, and he was like, man, I want that. I want to do it. Let's do it. So he popped that in, loaded that up. I played a couple little lines on top of it, help, put a few little pieces together on that song, and then they rapped on it, and that was pretty much the extent of it. We mixed the song right then and there.
You was in the studio with Tupac when he was recording Hit 'Em Up, right?
Well, so the Hit 'Em Up thing was another one of the times where I was on my way to LA anyway, and Pac had called and was like, man, I'm in the studio, come through. So, they told me, so come to Can-Am Studio. So it's me, Rick Rock, my baby mom, homeboy Tone, and a couple other people was with us. So we, get to the studio. Oh, Sheik was there. My baby mom's father, he was there. And we get to the Death Row. So somehow Sheik had a video camera. So, when you go to Death Row, it's almost like going to the airport. They will literally search you, and you have to go through these metal detectors, and it was like a really whole thing. And so, of course, they didn't want no cameras, but for some reason, anytime we were around, Suge and Death Row, all of the people, they wasn't really on us, really trying to be like police and acting crazy, or they wasn't on our back like that. So we got in, and started working. And before we were working, of course, Pac doing his usual. I think DJ Quick was actually there before we did the session, and then he, got done doing what he was doing, then he left, and then Pac started playing stuff. Playing different little songs or whatever, playing different little songs. A guitar player was there, Ricky Rouse. So he playing other songs that he had that he wanted us to hear, so he did that. Then he got done with that, and then, just the whole thing. He was like, he was like, all right, load up another song, Then he loaded the Hit 'Em Up song, right? Then he goes in there, he just started going in, right? He just started going in, doing his verses, and Edie went in there, did his little verses, everybody started doing their verses or whatever. And, at that time, it was the height of the whole us against them, East against West, Philly, So we at war now, right? So Pac in there going in and doing his little thing, and we filming the thing the whole time, not knowing what's really happening. And so, so he did his verses, and as he was doing his verse, I got a call from, I think it was either from Big John Platt or Bernard Parks. Bernard Parks was actually, he was managing the Goody Mob. So I asked Pac, was it cool for Goody Mob to come through? He was like, yeah, I want them to come, tell them to come through. So I said, Bernard, come through, bring the Goody Mob. So Goody Mob came through there, and that's why just so happened to be there when I got there. She was there. She hadn't really remembered me from the time I had met her before, but she was happened to be there. Just being there, chilling, listening to songs, smoking weed, kicking it, and so had the Goody Mob come through there. They had Joy come through there, so they was cool little thing. I had Big John came through there, and Pac was still recording the song. Everybody's still doing their thing, and so then when he got done, he playing it back. He playing, he talking crazy about any and everybody on the thing. It was fun and funny to him because he just really felt like he just murdered them on wax. Which he did. So he knew this was right up his alley. He couldn't wait for a heated battle. So he had a lot of anger in him towards a lot of different people when he got out. You know, because when you go to jail, a lot of people kind of like forget about you and hate on you or whatever. So I guess he felt like he had a lot of aggression. He was finally able to just murder some people on wax. You know what I mean? So he did that. And, you know, like I said, he was playing the songs, and after he got done, we would play it back and listen to it 2, 3, 4 times. And, you know, we all were just like on cloud nine. We were just all just hyped up. It's like, it was just like a high almost, you know what I mean? Just off of the music high. So, and everybody was just, you know, the Goody Mob then was looking at each other, and, you know, Big John, everybody's looking at each other because they, you know, they were kind of like not on either side. You know what I mean? They were friends with Puffy. They knew Puffy and them. You know what I mean? So they just looking at each other. It's like, man, we don't know what's going to happen after this. You know, this is like, they almost felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? They really felt uncomfortable. So, but, you know, because they were kind of like, you know, friends with everybody. So they, you know, they end up leaving or whatever. Everybody ended up leaving. So that's when we started, me and Rick started working on The Good Life. And so that's when we started producing The Good Life, and, you know, got loaded up Moog and MPC, and we just started putting SB1200 for the drums and the MPC we did. So we just played a bunch of live stuff on there and had the guitar playing, and, you know, Pac went and did his thing. And of course, mind you, that these sessions would last until like 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning. So that's, you know, that's pretty much the extent of what happened with that.
Left Eye was in the studio as well, right? When Tupac was recording Hit 'Em Up?
Yes. She was there when I got there.
Any stories about Left Eye from that day?
No, other than she was just there, you know, chilling, smoking weed, kicking it. You know what I mean? She wasn't really saying that. She was just like quiet. You know, I didn't even hear her talk. You know what I mean? She didn't even say too much of that. She just was, because she was just so undercover and just so low key and just like, you know what I mean? She just was another person that was in the studio, chilling, sitting right next to Pac, smoking weed and listening to it. And, you know what I mean? She didn't really say nothing. She was just there, you know?
Tupac dissed Jay-Z on Hit 'Em Up, right?
Yeah, he dissed Jay-Z, Nas. He dissed everybody you could think of. Back then, that was hot. He dissed everybody on the East Coast just because, realistically, at the time, I remember the times where East Coast would just be like, man, anything on the West Coast is corny. Y'all got Jerry curls. Y'all country. Y'all this, y'all that. So anytime I would go to New York, they wasn't playing no West Coast, nothing. There wasn't no down south, nothing. It was none of that. They really was of their own industry within their own self. Even though we were all in the music industry, on the West Coast we playing everything. On the East Coast they wasn't playing nothing but East Coast music. So, you know, that's pretty much why he dissed everybody over there. Just let them know that, you know what I mean. Ain't nobody immune to catching a hot one on wax for the most part, because we just as good as all of y'all. And so I'm here to tell you, you know what I mean? So he just, you know, dissed everybody in there. Whoever's next, whoever want to say something, he just made sure he, you know what I mean, set the record straight to get everybody. You know?
Right. I feel you. But when was the last time you spoke to Tupac?
I want to say it was probably after that session, like a few days or something after that or something like that. I think I spoke to somebody in the camp prior to them going to Vegas, because I went to Vegas with them once before, and we were all at 662 and hanging out at the club or whatever. I went with them once before when he performed at 662. But I think I spoke to them prior to that. Him going to L.A., and, you know, I was supposed to be going down there to L.A. as well. I mean, not to L.A., to Vegas.
How did you find out the news that Tupac got shot in Vegas?
I saw it on TV. But I was like, you know, it's just Pac. You know what I mean? That's what happens. You know what I mean? He gonna get out of this one. And then I called. I'm like, man, it's looking kind of crazy. Let me call over here. So I called Layla. Layla Steinberg, which was one of Tupac's mentors and managers, and good friend. So I called Layla, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Pac is okay. He's sedated. He's this and that. He's on life support, but don't worry about coming down. Everybody's cool. Don't you know what I mean? Don't worry about coming down like that, you know, because he can't really talk or say too much of that anyway, you know. So don't just just hold tight. Cause I was still up in the Bay Area, and so and of course, a few days later, then he died. So I'm like, what? I couldn't believe it, you know. And it just felt like the whole industry the music industry was just over for the West Coast. It was just that big of an impact for us that was working with him, you know. Just felt like it was just, what do you do now?
Do you think Tupac joining Death Row was pretty much his downfall?
Not necessarily, because I don't think he would have catapulted to what he did if he hadn't have. But at the same time, it did kind of, like being on Death Row, it just fed into that whole, I got an axe to grind type thing. Suge condoned Pac going off the rails. You know what I mean? He didn't have no guardrails when he was with Suge. He just felt Death Row untouchable. He really felt like they was really untouchable. You know, which it seemed like that, and it felt like that because of the power and the muscle that Death Row had. You know, they had the money, they had the muscle, they had everything you could think of to make you feel like that. And that's just a natural feeling for a person who's mad and have a bunch of aggression or axe to grind. If you have all of these different sources of power at your disposal and you're at the head of it, you tend to get sucked up in it, not knowing that you're being sucked up in it. You know what I mean? And you just end up spiraling, and you see what happens. You still got to remember, though, that we still in the streets. You know what I mean? There's still some street business happening, and we all can bleed. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to know when to stick and move. But it was just all gas and no brake when Pac was at Death Row. You know what I mean? It was like anything you want to do, anybody you want to touch or have touched, you could do it. Ain't nobody gonna touch you because you got layers and layers of protection, you know, thinking that you can't be hit, you know, and get caught slipping, which is what happened. You know, I don't think it was a bad thing.
I want to go back to something we talked about earlier. When you was on the set for California Love, do you have any stories from that video shoot? I know that had to be a crazy experience, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was like the craziest thing, because we all caravan down there. I forgot what part of LA. I want to say we were in Orange County somewhere, and it just was crazy because you were around. It just felt like a big family reunion. You were around any and everybody from the West Coast that was really doing it. We were around DJ Quick, Roger Troutman is right there, Dr. Dre, Pop. You know what I mean? This was the Death Row. You know what I mean? Suge, everybody. This was like a big family picnic type of thing. It just felt, it felt like a family reunion. You know, like you felt unified because LA to the Bay was all one. He cemented our relationship right then and there. He married the Bay music. He married the music industry and tied us all into one segment of the hip hop thing. You know, instead of us all being, oh, you Bay Area, you this, you that. Even though we were still Bay Area and LA, but he still made it so where we wasn't in competition with each other at all. We just all stayed on the same page, and we just was all family, and that worked. And that's how he built a community. You know what I mean? So it was a real dope scenario. It just felt good. And at that time, before we even got there, Pac was like, he was telling me, like, man, what are you doing up in the Bay? You need to come down here. You need to come down here and work with me. You know what I mean? Come work. That was one of the last conversations that we kind of had, because it's usually always a bunch of people around, so it's never really too much one-on-one conversation. When I was with Pac, only a couple times it was just me and him, where it's just me and him talking. So that video shoot was like one of the dopest things. That one of the dopest videos I'd ever been in.
Out of curiosity, why didn't Tupac do more verses for Trade and War Stories?
Because he just wanted everybody else to shine. It wasn't really like, I'm through, or, you know what I mean? He wasn't trying to take it over because there was a lot of us in the studio. But he was trying to give everybody they shine. You know what I mean? If you notice, that's why Sebo was on a couple of those. You know what I mean? I think Sebo was on both of those because that was one of his favorite rappers. I mean, some of his favorite songs that I produced was some Sebo songs from Sacramento. And so, he just did. It wasn't no particular reason why he did or didn't that I know of. Like I say, we wasn't really saying, "Pop, go back in there and do another verse. We need another verse from you." We wasn't really like that because we were just in work mode. We just was doing some organic, just viral type stuff.
Right. But before I end this interview, my man, I want to ask you one thing. You knew Tupac before he joined Death Row, and you were still cool with Tupac after he joined Death Row. Did you see a difference with Tupac after he joined Death Row?
It wasn't that he changed when he joined Death Row. He changed when he went to jail and got out. You know what I mean? Because he felt like he had this label that he was with that made a lot of money off of him and with him, and they could have done something about the same thing that Suge did. They could have did that, but they purposely was like, forgetting, whatever. You know what I mean? We don't care nothing about him. So he felt kind of betrayed, so to speak. You know what I mean? Felt let down. Even though he had been getting into trouble off and on, but that's just what happens when to us, especially back then, us as black men, we gonna get in trouble, especially as boisterous as Tupac was, and he just was he was just woke, and the system and just different people really didn't really like that. You know what I mean? So he was a threat to people. So they just felt some kind of way, I guess. And like, man, we tired. You know what I mean? Whatever, let him sit down. Maybe he'll learn his lesson or whatever. So he changed, but he rightfully so. You know what I mean? He just was angry. You know what I mean? It's like people turning your back on him. That you thought were your friends, and they said, "Oh yeah, we got your back." We did that, and all of a sudden, the times get hard. No matter who fault it was or whatever happened, they wasn't there for him. So he was angry. Like I said, he had an axe to grind. He was mad. So he changed just to get back at the people who, you know what I mean, who didn't have no love for him, who he thought had love for him.